Okay, peace and love and prosperity to all of the human family. Uh, this is an AMPAG treaty study session that we have every Sunday. Today we'll be covering chapter 4. We're going to continue with the reading of the Act of Algeciras, chapter 4, the better out, as it's called, better output. What is it called? I had it already set up. Better output, and I don't want to chop up the title. I had it already set up, and now I got to go find it again. 1 second, you all. Can you all see the screen?
I see you, but not the screen.
Okay. 1 second. I'm going to stop it and start recording again. Okay, there we go. I got enough. Okay. And you still don't see the screen. Oh, you can't see the screen because I got to share it. All right. All right, let me stop this recording and start over. Well, that's fine. We'll just roll like this. All right, let me share the screen. All right, now you can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Islam. So it says a declaration concerning a better return of taxes and the creation of new revenue. So we'll be continuing with that reading today. But before we do, let's go into another subject matter real quick to show what's going on in the world, in the Moorish world, the old paradigm world that we're staying away from, right? This is not something that we are a part of. This is not something that we condone. However, it is one of those old paradigm, Tashariq Bey type of processes. I'm trying to move this box out of the corner, okay, or out of the way. So there's been a couple claiming allegiance to Moorish nation, and they were arrested after squatting in a NASCAR driver's multi-million-dollar mansion. That's what the authorities say, right? So Rowan County, North Carolina, a couple has been arrested for breaking in and squatting inside a multi-million-dollar Mooresville home. Now imagine that. What's the name of that town? Mooresville, owned by a NASCAR driver, authorities said. According to Rowan County Sheriff Kevin Alton, the couple, who said they are members of the Moorish nation, broke into a home off Highway 152 that belongs to NASCAR driver Ricky Stenhouse. An arrest report obtained by WBTV identifies Columbia, South Carolina residents Darius Trone Hall, 29, and Atijah Shaina Fields, 37, as the offenders. The report showed that the arrest happened on August 19th at 8:21 p.m. Hall was charged with breaking and entering, 2 counts of contributing to the delinquency of a minor, carrying a concealed gun, and second-degree trespassing. He was given a $25,000 secured bond. Fields was charged with breaking and entering, 2 counts of contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and second-degree trespassing. She was given a $10,000 secured bond. They had the same exact charges, yet they got 2 different types of bonds. Interesting. Both Hall and Fields were taken to the Rowan County Detention Center. Alton said the large home is currently up for sale. The Moorish nation shares beliefs similar to traditional sovereign citizens. Common practices include filings to claim property belonging to another. So y'all hear this foolishness. They're not the first to do this. There has been many more that's done it. In fact, there was another couple not too long ago that pulled in an abandoned house, a vacant house, a mansion with I think it was on the Daily Beast, with the U-Haul. They backed in, started unloading their furniture, and just moved in the house. Of course, they were arrested. Let me see if I see that article. This is what I hate about these things. They want you to subscribe and they don't want to share the article without your subscription. I'm not interested in subscribing. But it spoke about that particular couple. And, you know, these are these Tariq Bey, old paradigm processes that's causing us a lot of grief. You know, we cannot, there's a thing where Moors, within our Moorish movement, what was I saying? Lost my train of thought. But we cannot continue doing this. Now, what I will say though, on our behalf, it makes us look good. It might sound horrible, but it makes us look good. Why does it make us look good? Because we're not doing these things, and we're coming to these people with 3 branches of government, right? The consular court, elections. In other words, we're coming to them in our proper person. The people that are doing these things are ipso jure subjects. Do they have the authority to do what they're doing? No, not legally, not by law, maybe by consanguinity, because the point or their position is, well, we're the heirs of the land and all the buildings on the land belongs to us, and you know, that type of thing, which is true, but not from the angle that they're taking. You have to enact legislation. What we're looking to do is take over the entire system. We're not worried about a single home. We're not worried about some sort of traffic court citation that we get away with. No, we're talking about taking over we're talking about the full restoration of the empire, which means dealing with the entire system, and it's done through the Moxin, your state government. So let's talk about where is it? Let's talk about Moxins. I had it pulled up already. Brother Hakeem, I'm gonna share something that you sent me, good brother.
What's up?
And I want you to elaborate on it while I pull up some other stuff. You guys see this on the screen?
Yep.
Good brother, the good brother Hakeem Bey, the talented good brother Hakeem Bey put this diagram together. Could you elaborate on this diagram real quick, please?
Regarding the message I sent you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So after the last meeting, I believe it was the one on the 21st, there was some mention at the very last minute of the discussion regarding the domain name of the use of Moxin. And at the time, I didn't know what the word meant, but in the meeting, it was stated that it's ancient for like state or government. After the meeting, I looked it up, and the term is popularly used to mean state or government. However, from my studies, from what I've noticed, is when something is popularly used to mean a certain thing or commonly used to mean a certain thing, that tends to be the connotative meaning of the word. The denotative meaning of the word, from what I read, was the institution, the governing institution centered around the monarch.
Which is this diagram over here on the right, correct?
So based on the Moorish rudder and sexton, the monarch would be considered the sultan In other body politics or other governmental bodies, it would simply be the head of state. So whatever government institution is centered on the head of state, essentially, right? Based on the Moorish order and sexton, that is the Sultan. Now, from my comprehension, as I was building this diagram of the Moorish order and sexton, the body that's the governing body that's centered around the Sultan is separate from the actual government in its entirety. A lot of these offices or officers or ministers that are centered around the Sultan work in different sections of the government doing their own thing. But as you can see in the Great Council section, essentially everybody's there. All the top guys are there, or women. But yeah, that was I was just bringing that information to you based on what I found, that the Moxen is not the entire government. It's just the governance institution centered around whoever's in charge.
Right. I lost the diagram. Okay, here we go. All right, exactly. So, and that's correct what he said. And that's the research that I turned up as well when I started looking up the word Moxen after reading the treaty. And as you notice on the diagram on the right, he's absolutely correct. You know, it's centered around the Sultan. So you'll see that all the titles that are being currently used in our state, you'll find within this diagram, except for the Amir, which is the commander. Outside of that, you got the Sharif, which is, in this case, he's considered the head Mufti. Obviously for us, we have the Mufti would be the Consul General, the Qazi, Chief Magistrate, the Sutra, the Shield, the Sayaraha, in this case is the Navigator. And here, the Wazir al-Rais still remains as the Prime Minister. What you're looking at here is, that's the Moxen, right? The body, the governing body, that it says it down here, as the brother put it. This would be considered the Moxen, which is centered around the monarch, sultan, and or head of state. So it's the governing body, that governs the state on behalf of the sultan or the king or whoever the ruler may be. This structure is based on a monarchy. Today, we no longer have any monarchs. All right. So who are the monarchs? Who are the majesties? Who are the sultans? Who are the kings? That would be the people. So the Moxen on this diagram is centered around the people. So where you see sultan, you'll replace that with the people, right? The people are the rulers. The people is today's modern form of governance is basically we the people by the people. And the Moxen is centered around the people, you see? And so, and the reason why I'm covering Moxen for a reason, because we're going to see Moxen a lot in the reading. And so, like the Amir, instead of the Amir or commander, in our case, it could potentially be the Minister of Foreign Affairs or the Haji. All right. So my point, what I'm saying with that is, in today's modern day, it serves the purpose. I wanted to showcase how the name still matches for what we're doing, whether it be denotative or connotative, because either form of it, whether it be denotative or connotative, is not based in anything negative versus what they do. So what they'll do is they'll call their slaves, but that's a connotative term as it relates to us. The denotative term for slave would be the Slavs, the Yugoslavians, etc. They are the slaves. That's their nationality. So you'll see how they've applied a negative content, a negative word to us in the form of a connotative, in the form of connotative linguistics, right? Also add to that, okay, story, when I get done, you can speak, let me finish this right here. Also add to that, that in our own jurisdiction, as I stated earlier, we can identify words as we see fit within our own jurisdiction and within our own territory. So even though it may be even though in the original form it may mean the governing body that's centered around the sultan, And the connotative meaning would be a state or a government. It still serves its purpose. And at the end of the day, in today's modern states, the people are the sultan. So we're still in line with the understanding of what a Moxen is. Go ahead, Sister Story, what you got?
You know, I got to come in with a little bit of a rebuttal. So if we are in at our varying stages of advancement, as you like to say, and we are constructing, but also honoring by going back to the origin, then would it be not so advantageous for us to instill something that we collectively know is not in harmony with origin? Because if we're talking about origin, and then words, you know, like words have energy. So what we build energetically, you know, will feed back to us. So do we want to energetically build with and put out Moxen when its origin is not?
Well, that I just explained it. It's still, it is in line with what we're doing. The difference between ancient times and today is the monarchy. So the Moxen is centered around the monarch. Today, the monarch is who? That question is, that question requires an answer. That wasn't a rhetorical question. Who is the,
State.
what was that?
The state.
The state. So if
Yeah.
it's, so if
The
go ahead.
Sultan is replaced by the state.
Correct. So if the Sultan is replaced by the state, and there's a governing body that surrounds the state, then what is that called? A Moxen. So it's in line with even our ancient forms. If you're still got something to say, sister, go ahead and say it, or because you got your hands up. I don't even know if you. So let's look here.
I'm trying to put out a fire alarm, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that in because that's where I always am. But if
excuse me, I'm sorry.
with what you're saying, I can understand it differently. So.
Okay, well, in the Wikipedia here, it says Moxen is the governing institution in Morocco and in pre-1957 Tunisia, centered on the monarch and consisting of royal notables, top-ranking military personnel, landowners, security service bosses, civil servants, and other well-connected members of the establishment. The term Moxen is also popularly used in Morocco as a word meaning state or government. Does that make you feel a little bit better?
Well, do we have any other input on it? You know, like does anybody, because I know Hakeem brought it to our attention.
Mm-hmm.
So his, you know, perspective, I feel like I'm missing out on, because with the diagram, the one to the left looked like the one that we're enacting, the one that we are participating in, rather than, you know, even though once before we were behaving as a government around the Sultan, but if the one on the left is talking about all of the parties of the government playing, you know, a role in themselves, I don't know, that just looks like it's more in harmony. So I just have to raise my hand to that, but I would like a little bit of input from other folks.
The one on the right is actually more, I hear what you're saying on the one on the left because it's dealing with the Constitution in the middle, but you can make the case for this. You can make that same case for the one on the right, because the Sultan is the people. So here where it says Sultan, you put AMPAG, because AMPAG is the people. And our, go ahead.
No, I was saying, I hear you.
And our three branches of government is right there. The Qazi, Chief Magistrate, the Wazir al-Rais, the Prime Minister, and the Sayar Raha, except it has it here as navigator and not the Speaker of the House. In other words, that's another point. When you look at the rudder and sextant, we're not using everything in accordance, 100% in accordance with what the rudder and sextant says. I wish I probably should have pulled it up. But like, for example, in the rudder of sextant, it doesn't necessarily call the Sayar Raha the Speaker of the House. It really calls her, and in fact, the Dalil Aziz is not even the matriarchal council. As a matter of fact, the Dalil Aziz is actually a body, different governmental bodies that came together as the council, as a council, and it could be composed of males or females. Well, in our case, the Lil Aziz is the matriarchal council, and it only contains the matriarchs, and it's individual matriarchs, not a governing body that came together as a council on behalf of the Sultan. So in other words, what I'm saying is that many of these titles are based in monarchy, the monarchy form of government that we once had. But today we don't have any monarch form of government, and what it is now is the state government. States, 3 branches of government, and the people being in charge of it all. And that's what you'll see over here on the right, if I'm looking at it correctly. And you'll see, so again, we could say that the Sultan would be AMPAG, or the state, and the governing body that surrounds it would be the Moxen. And so if you go back to the definition again, it says it right here. The term Moxen is also properly used in Morocco, as a word meaning state or government. Go ahead, Brother Hakeem.
Islam. And thanks for clarifying that, because you really hit the nail on the head. I was gonna actually speak on essentially what you just said regarding the fact that the Constitution, which is based off of AMPAG's Constitution, is not entirely 100% based on the Moorish rudder and sexton, because if it were, then it would look more like the diagram in terms of structure, and not just structure, but responsibilities of each office. So to add a little bit more context for Sister Story, if we were to, because again, the way the Constitution's set up, the officials have the authority to change the Constitution at any point, alter it, however, right? So if it's the will of the people, then you could always restructure the government to fit the structure of the Moorish rudder and sexton at any point in time. Whether or not you want to do that now in the beginning stages or wait later, it's up to everyone to decide on collectively. But yeah, this is a work in progress. It's not entirely done. I'm sure there are still some errors I made on there that I had to go back and correct. But I'm sure there's something else I missed. But it is something that I think is going to be necessary for Moors as we start to form our governments, is to think in terms of basing our governments on the Moorish rudder and sexton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
hopefully this will be helpful
That is helpful.
once it's completed thoroughly.
It is helpful. And in the main point that has to be kept in mind is that the rudder and sexton is based on monarch titles, or the titles based in the monarchy. Since we have a state, since now we're dealing with states, we have to kind of like, what do you call that? Use the titles in accordance with that form of government, right? And like if you see right here on the left at the top of the circle, you see Sayaraha is the head of parliament. So that's still in line, because the Sayaraha is the head of the patriarchal council, the speaker of the house. I really enjoy this diagram. I think it's even if I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see any errors. Maybe there are. It looks great to me. That was this was masterfully done, and as far as I'm concerned. And the one that really represents us the most is the one on the right, considering the titles that we're using, and the Sultan being the people. Islam? Okay.
Islam, I got you.
All right. Now, let's go to the money. Let's go to economic liberty without any inequality. So here we are with chapter 4, We know what, oh, before I get into it, let's touch another word. Okay, tertib. What is tertib? Well, when I was trying to look it up, I couldn't find anything. All I could find is something called Tertib Publishings. You know, that's the only thing that I found. But then I came across this particular article, this document, when France used the public debt to colonize Morocco. So Morocco has been colonized by France, and that was due to a debt in 1904. There it is right here, 1904. So it says Moroccan indebtedness leading to the 1904 loan had many causes. In the long view, the Sultanate's lack of resources was due to the division of the country between the Bled El Moxen, ruled directly by the state, and the Bled Siba, a territory not subject to central authority. Oppositional, dissident. I'm not reading the whole thing. A duality which was the true mode of regulation of the Shereefian Empire. Look how they spelled it. Cherifian. But what I was really bringing your attention to is down here. Encouraged by the foreign mission, this part that's highlighted, encouraged by the foreign mission to his court, widened the trade deficit and substantiated accusations of godlessness aimed at the young monarch. Worse still, the reform of the tertib, taxation. So tertib is taxation. And the young monarch that they're talking about is this guy here, Abdelaziz, who was 22 years old. It was in his context of structural weakness that recent political events triggered a crisis. In 1900s, the regent, does somebody mute your Parashah, mute your line, please. Sister Parashah, thank you. In 1900, the regent Ahmed died, and his nephew, the young Abdelaziz, 22, inherited the throne to become putty in the hands of foreign powers. So here we're starting to understand how the government, the Moroccan Empire, really started losing its power. His lavish and extravagant spending, a railroad inside the Meknes Palace. He built a whole railroad inside of a palace. Automobiles, solid gold cameras, etc., encouraged by the foreign missions to his court, widened the trade deficit and substantiated accusations of godlessness aimed at the young monarch. Worse still, the reform of the tertib, taxation, carried out at least at the behest of British envoy Arthur Nicholson, disorganized the fiscal system. The scraping of traditional Quranic taxes and the introduction of a new tax based on planted acreage aroused widespread opposition. Keep that word in mind, planted acreage. We'll touch on something like that on the next article. Suddenly, the Sultan found himself unable to collect any direct taxes from his subjects. And so what happened in 1912, which was what, 12 years or so after that, the Treaty of Fez, which gave the authority to the French to oversee Morocco. So here, open science, Control F, tertib. So the word tertib comes in 3 times on this document, and it's 126 pages. So what is tertib? This is a further understanding of what tertib is. In Morocco, the bulk of modern taxation was, before the 1940s, a tax on agricultural income called tertib. So that's what that last article was talking about with the acreage, right? So a tertib is an agricultural tax. It's not just a tax, it's an agricultural tax. On the second meaning, or the second word that comes up in this document, the tertib was originally introduced by the Sultan Moulay Abdelaziz in 1901, and then withdrawn before being revived by the French administration in 1915. See how France is involved in all of this stuff? The third part of the document that speaks on tertib, modern taxes comprise taxes which required the frequent collection of self-declaration of detailed economic information on individuals and firms, direct modern taxes, modern D, or personal income taxes, something in import sur whatever, as well as the Moroccan tax on agricultural income called tertib. All right, now that we know what tertib means, Article 59, as soon as the tertib shall have been put into regular operation with regard to Moorish subjects. As soon as the tertib shall have been put into regular, as soon as the agricultural tax shall have been put into regular operation with regards to Moorish subjects, the representatives of the powers at Tangiers shall subject their citizens, subjects, and proteges in the empire of the application thereof. But it is understood that this tax shall not be applied to foreign subjects except A, under the conditions stipulated by the regulation of the diplomatic body at Tangier on November 24, 1903. And B, at places where it shall effectively be collected from Moorish subjects. So Moorish subjects got to pay taxes. They got to pay a tertib, an agricultural tax. You see, the consular authorities shall retain a certain percentage of the receipts of the taxes they collect from those subjects, from those subject to their jurisdiction to cover the cost of tax bills and collection. The rate of such percentage shall be fixed by mutual agreement between the Moxen and the diplomatic body at Tangier. Yeah, the word Moxen, it comes up quite often. That's why we touched the word Moxen real quick. That's why we touched the word tertib right quick. So we can get some understanding, so we can have a general understanding as we read through the document. Article 60. In accordance with the right, and everyone who has a question, you can interrupt and ask your questions or comments. Article 60. In accordance with the right granted by Article 11 of the Madrid Convention, foreigners shall have the right to acquire property throughout the Shereefian Empire, and His Majesty the Sultan shall issue to his administrative and judicial officers such instructions as may be necessary for them not to refuse the registration of deeds without lawful cause. Subsequent transfers, either by deeds between living parties or by death, shall continue without hindrances. Okay, so what is Article 11 saying about these foreigners having the right to property? We'll find out real quick. Article 11. This is the Treaty of Madrid. Let me open it up some more so you can see it. Okay, I hope you guys can see that. So it says, the right to hold property is recognized in Morocco as belonging to all foreigners. The purchase of property must take place with the previous consent of the government. I just wanted to let that marinate for a little bit. The purchase of property must take place with the previous consent of the government, and the title of such property shall be subject to the forms prescribed by the laws of the country. Go ahead, Sister Story. You don't have to raise your hand, just come on in.
So foreigners, in order for them to purchase property, they would need the consent of the Moroccan government?
Bingo. Has they consented us or any other Moorish government to buy their properties? So the house that the two people that were just the two Moors that were squatting in, you see they were right, but were they right? They were right by their moral authority, by their consanguinity, but they weren't right by law because they don't have any emanating documents to make that possible. Your hands are still up. You got another question? Okay. So then to finish, any question that may arise concerning this right shall be decided according to the same laws, with the privilege of appeal to the Minister of Foreign Affairs stipulated in the treaties. So they have to appeal to Amaru if there's any concerns in regards to the ownership of their properties. And what else is an issue with this? We'll examine that. What else is an issue with their own, with the ownership of their so-called ownership of property? Okay, number one, they haven't gotten any permission from from the Moorish government. And two, what they issue out are warranty deeds. This didn't say anything about warranty deeds. This said right here, deeds. You see the games they're playing? All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, there's another thing. They don't have any real money to pay for the property.
That's the other issue. Exactly. So
How
they
can
don't,
charge $1 million, something that's, there's no money.
so they didn't get permission. They're using warranty deeds and they're not even using money to transfer for ownership transfer. So they're just violating everything all around. They're just doing whatever they want to do. Why though? Because the Moxen isn't here to hold them accountable. The governments, the states are not here. The Sultan, there's no type of governing body. It doesn't matter whether it's a monarchy, whether it's a state government, any form of body politic. There's nothing in place to challenge them and hold them accountable. The Moxen, the Sultan, the governments, everything's dead. Right, it's all dead until we bring it back. That's just what it is. Okay, and that's what we're working on, bringing it back. In the ports open to commerce and within a radius of 10 kilometers around such ports, His Majesty the Sultan, generally and without it being necessary henceforth for foreign subjects to obtain a special permission for each purchase of property. See, he says it in, they say it in here, permission. They're saying it in there. For each purchase of property now grants the consent required by Article 11 of the Madrid Convention. Does anybody recognize something here? Something that the prophet brought to us. I'll highlight it. Ale. So at Khazar El Kabir, Arzila, and Azamor, and eventually in other towns, so these are all towns, of the coast or the interior, the general authorization stated above is likewise granted to foreigners, but only for purchasers within a radius of 2 kilometers around those towns. Wherever foreigners may have acquired property, they will be permitted to erect buildings in compliance with regulations and usage. Before authorizing the execution of deeds for transferring property, Tyree, Rael, the Qadi will have to satisfy himself of the validity of the title in conformity to the Mohammedan law. So every time there's a closing, the Qadi is supposed to be present to identify the transfer, to satisfy himself of the validity of the title in conformity to the Mohammedan laws. Go ahead, Ben. Ben, your hands is up.
Yeah, isn't that those Moorish subjects who was in that house, they wouldn't be considered foreigners, would they?
Yeah, they're foreigners to the United States. But as far as it's concerned to AMPAG or the Moroccan Empire, there would be Moorish subjects who are in the jurisdiction. That's why they're Moorish subjects, because they're in the jurisdiction of the United States.
Right. So, well, all I'm saying, being that they're not foreigner to the AMPAG, they wouldn't need permission, from what I'm understanding, to acquire land.
I mean, well, okay. You could, yeah, I mean, this didn't say that Moorish subjects require permission. It said that the foreigners require permission. So yes.
Right. Yeah. So I was just making sure I understood what you was saying correctly.
Okay, Islam. All right, put your hands down because it's going to confuse me, please. Thank you.
Give me a second, man. Dang.
Oh no, I'm not rushing you, bro. Calm down. I was just saying that just in case you.
I got you, big brother. I got you.
Wherever foreigners may have acquired property, they will be permitted to erect buildings in compliance with regulations and usage. Before authorizing the execution of deeds for transferring property, the Qadi will have to satisfy himself of the validity of the title in conformity to the Mohammedan law. And if you're not in conformity, then the closing will be canceled. The other reason for the Qadi's presence at closing is to verify and make sure, now mind you, that it doesn't have to be the Qadi himself, it could be someone within his office, right? But the other purpose for his presence is to ensure that the transfer, through the transfer, the Moorish state government will receive their due 2% taxes for every real estate sale. The Moxen shall designate in each city. Okay, so the Moxen, the state government, whatever, shall designate in each city and district specified in this article the Qadi who shall have charge of such verification. So we need several Qadis. There's 159 counties in Georgia. Article 61, with a view to creating a new resource, with a view to creating new resources for the Moxen, the conference recognizes in principle that a tax may be established on city buildings. A part of the receipts thus realized shall be set aside for the requirements of municipal streets and hygiene, and generally for the expense of improvement and conservation of the cities. The tax is due from the Moorish or foreign owner without distinction, but the tenant or the holder of the key shall be responsible to the Moorish treasury. I think that's explained. The regulations issued jointly by the Shereefian government and the diplomatic body at Tangier shall establish the rate, its method of collection and application, and shall determine the quota of revenue thus created, which shall be devoted to the expense of improvement and conservation of the cities. Isn't this what they're doing? Or at least it's what they tell us that they're doing. Oh, we need taxes to fix this, and we need taxes to fix the roads, and we taxes to fix that. That's their excuses. Then it's not necessarily going to that, or at least not the whole portion of it. Most of the taxes is going to the crown in Great Britain. At Tangier, this quota shall be turned over to the International Sanitary Council, which shall decide as to its use until the creation of a municipal organization. Article 62. His Shereefian Majesty having decided in 1901 that the Moorish officials, I don't know how many times I've just read the word Moorish. I've read the word Moorish several times thus far, and it's like, well, why is it that the Moorish people through the temple, etc., don't know about the Act of Algeciras and their nationality is in it? It's called infiltration. Article 62, His Shereefian Majesty having decided in 1901 that the Moorish officials who collect the agricultural taxes, so they specifically say in the beginning, it said tertib, but tertib is agricultural taxes, should no longer receive either the sokra or the mona. The conference is of the opinion that this rule shall be made general so far as is possible. We could look up sokra and mona, but no, it's not nothing too big to deal with. Article 63, the Shereefian delegates have stated that Habu property, what is Habu property? We spoke about that before. That's your ancient buildings that they're using, working or operating out of, your ancient churches, your ancient libraries, your ancient museums, the Capitol buildings in every city. There's Habu's property all over the place. The Kremlin that Putin works out of in Russia, that's a Habu property, right? The Capitol where Brian Kemp is operating out of, that's a Habu property. The Shereefian delegates, the Moorish delegates, have stated that Habu property or certain state property, notably buildings of the Moxen, occupied at a rental of 6%. 6%. 6% are held by persons subject to foreign jurisdiction without regular title or by virtue of contracts subject to revision. 6%. 6%. All right now. Hubble Properties, 6%. The conference, this series of remedying the state of affairs, charges the diplomatic body at Tangier to solve these two questions equitably, in accord with the special commissioner, whom his Shereefian Majesty may be pleased to designate to that effect. Article 64. The conference takes formal note of the proposition formulated by the Shereefian delegates on the subject of taxes to be created on certain trades, industries, and professions. So it says that the Shereefian delegates on the subject of taxes to be created. So the taxes are to be created. So meaning that it didn't exist at the time, right? On certain trades, industries, and professions. What I'm reading here is exactly what they are doing to us. They're creating taxes for everything that they can possibly create taxes for. But that was left up to us to do through the state governments, through the Shereefian delegates. Someone has something to say? Okay. If you all don't mind, please mute your mics. If as the result of the collection of such taxes from Moorish subjects, right? So we're to be collecting taxes from Moorish subjects. So those two Moorish subjects that squatted in the NASCAR driver's house, they're supposed to be paying taxes. It is what it is. So, I mean, because Article 15, let's go back to Article 15 real quick. Let's talk about Article 15, paragraph 2. It's right there. Any subject of Morocco. So you're a subject of Morocco, meaning you're subject to the crown. So that's two different statuses using the same word. So that example shows and proves that the word subject is not necessarily bad. It's how it's being used. So either you're the subject of Morocco, which means you fall under the jurisdiction of the crown, your people, your ancestors, your government, or you a Moorish subject, which means you're subjugated more under someone else's jurisdiction, as highlighted in Article 15. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization, choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco, unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco, which they never received any consent from our government. That's Article 1. This is what you need to do if you want to regain your sovereignty and in your nationality. However, this is what happens to you as a Moorish subject if you remain a Moorish subject, according to paragraph 2. Foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco, foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco. Bless you, and mute yourself, please. That was loud. Thank you. Foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco, according to the rules established by the laws of each country, shall be continued to them as regards all its effects without any restrictions. So you have a choice. Either you choose between the submission of the laws of the empire and return back to Morocco, or you remain under the jurisdiction of the United States as a foreign naturalized Moorish subject. If you remain in that status, then that means that the country, which in this case will be the United States, they have the authority to do whatever they want with you without any restrictions. So let's go back here. If if as the result of the collection of such taxes from Moorish subjects. Because that particular Moorish subject who's now being taxed, he did not choose between the submission of the laws of the empire. He remained as a subject. Go ahead, Sister Shira.
Yes, so if he becomes a Moorish national, he doesn't have to pay taxes anymore?
According to this particular article, yes.
Okay.
Okay. The diplomatic body at Tangier should deem it advisable to extend the same to those under foreign jurisdiction. It is hereby specified that the said taxes shall be exclusively municipal. That's a word that's in the Black's-Law Dictionary, municipal law, which means a contradiction of law, right? And this is defined in their territory. And we also got to keep in mind that when you create your own jurisdiction, let me rephrase that, because we're not creating a new jurisdiction. When you reclaim your old jurisdiction, the new jurisdiction that's in place right now has reworded things or redefined redefined that's the better term. So we also have that authority and that power to redefine words as we see fit, that we can make it a more of an allodial or organic term, instead of allowing the encumbered or the encumbering nature of the word to remain as such. We have the power to change that and do as we see fit within our government. And we can do anything within our government. The limit is not violating just cogents or preemptory norms. Just cogents or preemptory norms is dealing with human rights. So we can do whatever we want without violating human rights. Go ahead, brother Ben, and then after that, brother Hakeem.
So once you come under the Moroccan Empire from the United States corporation, that 2% tax on your property when you acquire it would not apply to you at all, just the foreigners. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And they have to have permission.
And they have to have permission.
They
So,
gotta have permission to purchase property, purchase and own property.
Though that brother and sister right there, if they was to contact the Minister of Foreign Affairs here, he could come to their rescue and
No,
assist those brothers
no,
over there.
no, no,
Because they're still more subjects.
no, because they're not in our jurisdiction. They're in North Carolina.
Oh yeah. They're in another state. I don't know if you saw another article behind that, but there was another article that came on that I happened to catch, and when I went back to review it, it was gone. They had a brother who was wearing the fez going around knocking on doors.
Yeah, that's the article I was trying to pull up. That's the exact article I was trying to pull up. They done pulled up. They pulled in the yard with a U-Haul truck and trying to load up their friend. Moses out here wilding, Mo. They're out here wilding.
I think some of that is COINTELPRO because of our movement.
That could be a possibility. It could be a false flag event. I definitely would consider that as well. Yeah,
something I'm looking at. Okay, I yield the floor, Islam.
Islam. Go ahead, good brother Hakeem.
Islam. So I just wanted to say that being that we are descendants of the original creators of language, I can definitely see the point of us being able to create new meaning of words. However, exercising that, we would have to be mindful and considerate of existing meaning of words, kind of like a stare decisis type of thing, because I'm sure if we start to kind of just redefine and stuff, there are going to be Moors coming in trying to redefine the word America so that they can continue using Moorish Americans. You know what I mean? So we'd have to be mindful of that. Because the thing with our people is once we cling to something, we tend to have a difficult time giving it up.
Yeah,
Even when new information comes in that makes sense, we have a difficult time giving it up. You know what I mean?
that's exactly right.
So I can definitely see that scenario happening if we kind of made it a thing where it's okay to redefine stuff. Somebody's gonna come in and be like, well, American can mean this now. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
exactly.
yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Islamic, brother. Great point. Great point. Well, we're just gonna call it Amaru because they've already got a lot of different corruptions for the term, making it, they want to make it an ancient term, but it's a blanket term. It says a political jurisdiction that hadn't been here that much longer, definitely not longer than the term Morocco, than the soil itself. You got to think of Morocco as the organic soil, and America is the artificial grass that's laying over on top of the organic grass, or the organic state, which would be Morocco. That exact thing is called extraterritorial jurisdiction, with them encroaching over on top of your encroaching on your borders, and it's like a cloud, right? It's like a cloud that surrounds all of Morocco, and it's mainly because of us being buried in a shallow grave. Brother Ben, you got a question? Your hands is up.
No, I guess I didn't take it down. Okay,
Yeah,
here it is.
exactly.
All
right. Okay, Islam. So, okay. Article 65, the conference adheres to the proposition proposed by the Moorish delegation to create, with the assistance of the diplomatic body, a stamp tax on contracts and notarial acts brought before adults. B, a maximum transfer tax of 2% on sales of real estate. I'll be staying quiet for a reason. I just want what I read to just marinate for a little bit. Let me go back and read that again in case it went over anybody's head. Article 65, the conference adheres to the proposition proposed by the Moorish delegation to create, with the assistance of the diplomatic body, a stamp tax on contracts and notarial acts brought before adults. B, a maximum transfer tax of 2% on sales of real estate. So we identified two different numbers: 6% for the Habu property that they're occupying. They're supposed to be paying 6% on that, and then 2% on real estate sales taxes every time there's a closing. I don't know, what is the average amount of closings that take place in this country, let's just say in Georgia, per day? Thousands? 2% of those closings, just that tax alone. We are wealthy. We are a wealthy people. Somebody said in 1913, children, you are plainly rich. I wonder where you get that from. Nobody can tell me that Prophet Noble Drew Ali did not examine the act of Algeciras. C, a statistical and weighing tax of a maximum of 1% ad valorem on merchandise transported by coasting vessels. Those are three different numbers that's been thrown out there: 6%, 2%, and 1%. All right. D, a passport fee to be collected from Moorish subjects. So our people who want to stay in the United States, they got to pay. They got to pay a passport fee. E, eventually wharfage and lighthouse dues, the proceeds of which shall be devoted to harbor improvement. Article 6, that was Article 65. Article 66, merchandise of foreign origin shall temporarily be subject on entry into Morocco to special taxes amounting to 2.5% ad valorem. There goes another number. Merchandise of foreign origin. China. Won't China be bringing in foreign merchandise up in here? Merchandise of the foreign origin shall temporarily be subject on entry into Morocco to special taxes amounting to 2.5% ad valorem. Ad valorem is per year. The whole proceeds of this special tax shall form a special fund, which shall be devoted to the execution of an expense connected with public works for the development of navigation and the general trade of the Moorish Empire. Here it says Shereefian. The program of works in their order of priority shall be determined jointly by the Shereefian government and the diplomatic body at Tangier. The surveys, estimates, plans, and specifications appertaining thereto shall be made by a competent engineer appointed by the Shereefian government. We are to appoint the competent engineers. I'm sorry, go ahead, brother Bean.
Wouldn't China, being that they're part of the Moroccan Empire, are they subject to paying those taxes too, being that they're Moroccan as well?
They're not Moroccan. They're an attachment, they're attachment to the Moroccan Empire. And that's not even China, it will be Manchuria.
Manchuria,
China,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
China is the corporate jurisdiction. That's the foreign corporate jurisdiction.
Right. So if they were to say bring back Manchuria, would they still be part of the Moroccan Empire?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose. I'm not really sure. That's another. Yeah, I'm more concerned about what's going on this side of the world, but I mean, probably yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, the whole world is Morocco, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so you know, if you're that's a great question from the perspective that if it's a foreign, we're talking about foreigners to what? To Morocco. What part of Morocco? See, these things got to be identified. This is the reason for your longitude latitude, because the longitude latitude identifies a specific part of Morocco, right? Versus just saying, oh, I'm from Morocco. Which part of Morocco? You know, so that's a good question. I'm not really sure. I would say that they would be considered foreigners.
Yeah, because they were released from consular jurisdiction in according to 242-141. They mentioned China.
Yeah, they mentioned China. Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, so that's why I was bringing that up, since they were considered part of the Moroccan Empire that was released from consular jurisdiction. So yeah, I got you.
Okay, Islam. Appreciate the question. Go ahead, Sister Story. You had your hands up.
Yeah, for personal erudition, I wanted the spelling of the name of not China.
Oh, Manchuria.
Yeah.
MANCHURIA.
Thank you.
Spelled as it's pronounced. All right. Okay, so the surveys, estimates, plans, and specifications. Anyone else had another question? Okay, the surveys, estimates, plans, and specifications pertaining thereto shall be made by a competent engineer appointed by the Shereefian government jointly with the diplomatic body. This engineer may, if necessary, be assisted by one or more assistant engineers. Their salaries shall be charged to the special fund. So the special fund is for the engineers. The special fund will be deposited with the State Bank of Morocco, which is to keep its accounts. That was we discussed the State Bank of Morocco in chapter 3. Currently, we're in chapter 4. Okay, public contracts shall be awarded in the form under the general terms prescribed by the regulations that the diplomatic body at Tangier is charged to frame, together with the representative of his Shereefian Majesty. The Board of Awards shall consist of one representative of the Shereefian government, of 5 delegates of the diplomatic body, and of the engineer. The award shall be given in favor of the bidder who, in conformity with the specifications, may submit the bid, offering the most advantageous general terms. As for the sums yielded by the special tax and collected at the customs houses in the districts specified in Article 103 of the customs regulations, their expenditure will be determined upon by the Moxen with the consent of the neighboring power in accordance with the clause of this article. Article 67. The conference, without detriment to the observations offered upon this point, expresses the wish that the export duties on the following merchandise be reduced as follows. Chickpeas. They're talking about chickpeas, y'all. 20%. Corn, 20%. Barley, 50%. And wheat, 34%. So those are discounts. I think that's what it said. Let me go back up and see. Let's go back up. So it says the conference, without the detriment to the observations offered upon this point, expresses the wish that the export duties is taxes, that the export duties on the following merchandise be reduced as follows. So it's a reduction. So for the chickpeas, it will be a 20% reduction, corn, 20%, barley, 50%, and wheat, 34% reduction. Article 68, His Shereefian Majesty will consent to increase from 6,000 to 10,000 the number of head of cattle of the bovine species, with each power shall have the right to export from Morocco. Such exportation may be effected through any custom house. If by misfortune there should be a scarcity of cattle in any particular district, His Shereefian Majesty shall have the right to temporarily forbid the exportation of cattle through the port or ports of that district. Such measure shall not exceed 2 years, nor shall it be applied at the same time to all the ports of the empire. It is further understood that the preceding provisions do not modify the other conditions for the exportation of cattle as fixed by previous firmans. Firmans are like licenses and permits. That's what a firman is. The conference expresses the additional wish that a veterinary inspection be organized as soon as possible at the seaports. So we got vets involved in everything in dealing with the cattle. Article 69, and we know what cattle is. Article 69, in accordance with the previous decision of His Shereefian Majesty, and notably the decision of September 28, 1901, the transportation is allowed by coasting vessels between all ports of the empire of cereals, grains, vegetables, fruits, eggs, poultry, and in general of merchandise and animals of every kind, of Moroccan origin or not, except horses, donkeys, and camels, for which a special permit from the Moxen will be necessary. Such coasting trade may be carried on by vessels of every nationality, without such articles being subjected to payment of the export duties, but subject to the special taxes and regulations relative thereto. Article 70, the rate of sojourn and anchorage dues levied on ships in Moorish ports being fixed by treaties with certain powers. The said powers are disposed to consent to a revision of such dues, the diplomatic body. So they have, so the rate of sojourn and anchorage dues levied on ships in Moorish ports. So there's taxes that are being charged if you come on a Moorish port and you anchor your ship. So there's taxes for even anchoring your ship. All right, the diplomatic body at Tangier is therefore charged to effect an agreement with the Moxen on the terms of such revision, which cannot, however, take place until after the improvement of the ports. Article 71. The customs storage dues shall be collected in all Moorish ports where there are adequate warehouses in conformity to the regulations existing or to be adopted in regard thereto by the government of His Shereefian Majesty in accordance, what happened here? In accord with the diplomatic body at Tangier. All right. Let's talk about Article 72 real quick. Some of you people out here will enjoy Article 72. Article 72, opium and kif will continue to be a monopoly of the Shereefian government. Does anybody know what kif is?
Cannabis. Marijuana. Herb.
Do I need to read this again? Let's read it again.
Coke.
So it says, Article 72, opium and kif will continue to be a monopoly of the Shereefian government, which means it already was a monopoly, because it says it will continue to be a monopoly. So in other words, Moroccans have been weed heads since the beginning of time. That's why you see a lot of those pictures with them smoking out of those apparatuses. What do you call them? Not bombs.
Hookahs, the hookahs.
Yeah, the
Hookahs.
hookahs and all that. Yeah, that's ain't nothing but kif in there.
Islam.
So we've got, go ahead, somebody had something?
Yeah, I came across something that says a mixture of tobacco and ganja, which is frequently prepared and used in Morocco.
I found that too when I looked up kif. Opium and kif will continue to be a monopoly, and so, but whose monopoly is it right now? It's theirs. Well, at least the tobacco.
The crown, the British crown. That's who the monopoly is.
Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, you can say that too, but I was really talking about the United States. But the United States is the British crown, so I guess you could say that, yeah. So opium and kif, but the point is that the monopoly is being exercised by them, and primarily it was tobacco, right? We still had a monopoly over the marijuana to a degree, but there was no laws to uphold that operation. In fact, it was locking us up left and right with it. Now they have taken over the control of marijuana. Yeah, Delta 9 and Delta 8s, and you can sell it in the stores and all this kind of, the dispensaries. It's in accordance with Article 72. Okay, so Article 72, opium and kif will continue to be a monopoly of the Shereefian government. The importation of opium, specifically intended for medicinal purposes, will, however, be allowed by special permit issued by the Moxen at the request of the legation, the physician, or that word always kicks my butt. Apothecary, importing the same. The Shereefian government and the diplomatic body shall jointly determine the maximum quantity which may be thus introduced. Article 73. The representatives of the powers take note of the Shereefian government's intention to extend to tobacco of all kinds the monopoly existing in the case of snuff. Oh man. They reserve the right of their citizens, subjects, and proteges. So the subjects and the proteges are the Moors. The citizens are their regular, what do you call them? The citizens belong to the foreign, or the people that's under the jurisdiction of the foreign powers. The subjects and proteges are as well. But the difference between the Moors is that within our laws, our Islamic laws, there's no mention or it doesn't deal at all with being a citizen of no type. That's why they don't call us citizens. They call us subjects or proteges. So the citizens are the foreigners and the subjects and the proteges are the Moors that have been subjugated. And the reason why you're a protege is because you're under a certain type of protection. Okay, so they reserve the right of their citizens, subjects, and proteges to be duly indemnified for damages, which the said monopoly may cause such of them as carry on a tobacco business established under the present system. In case no amicable agreement shall be reached, the damages shall be fixed by experts designated by the Moxen and the diplomatic body in conformity with the provisions governing expropriation for public purposes. Article 74. The principle of awarding contracts on bids without preference of nationality shall be applied to the farming of the monopoly of opium and keef. The same rule would apply to the tobacco monopoly if created. All right. Real quick, if anyone has got their hands up, I'm not able to see everybody at the moment with the way the screen is, so I will be ignoring you because I can't see everybody's hands up the way the screen is right now. I'm sharing the screen. So if you have something to say or comments or just butt in. Okay, Article 75, if the occasion should arise to modify any of the provisions of this declaration, the Moxen and the diplomatic body at Tangier shall reach an understanding on this point. Article 76, in all the cases provided for by the present declaration where the diplomatic body shall be called upon to intervene except in what concerns Articles 64, 70, and 75, the decisions shall be reached by a majority of the votes. And that's the reading for Chapter 4. Chapter 5 is dealing with a regulation concerning the customs of the empire and the repression of fraud and smuggling. Any questions on Article 4 before we go to Article 5? What time is it?
I'm making sure we still on the Treaty of Madrid, right?
No, sir.
This is Algeciras. Okay.
The Act of Algeciras.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go into Article 5. What's wrong with this computer? Hold on 1 second. Sticky tripping. All right, let me get back to where I was. Okay. All right, Article 5, a regulation concerning the customs of the empire and the repression of fraud and smuggling. Article 77, every captain of a merchantman coming from a foreign or a Moorish port shall within 24 hours after having been granted free pratique in any of the ports of the empire, deposit at the customs an exact copy of his manifest, signed by him and certified to by the vessel's consignee. He shall furthermore, if required to do so, produce before the customs authorities the original of his manifest. Right? So that's what that means is if a captain is pulling into the ship, they have to show the certificate of manifest, which lets the port authorities know on paper what's on board coming into our ports. The customs shall have power to station one or more watchmen on board to prevent illicit trade. Article 78. The following are exempt from depositing the manifest: 1, men of war or ships chartered for the account of a power. 2, boats belonging to private individuals for their personal use and never carrying any merchandise. 3, boats or craft used for shore fisheries. 4, yachts intended only as pleasure boats and registered as such at their home ports. 5, ships especially charged with laying down and repairing telegraphic cables. 6, boats exclusively used in life-saving service. 7, hospital ships. And 8, training ships of the merchant marine not engaged in commercial operations. So those, everyone else would have to show a certificate of manifest except for those different groups and reasons. Article 79, the manifest deposited at the customs shall state the nature and origin of the cargo with the marks and numbers of the cases, bales, bundles, casks, etc. Article 80, if there is serious reason to suspect the accuracy of the manifest, or in case the captain of the ship should refuse to allow the visit and verification of customs officers, the case shall be brought to the attention of the proper consular authority in order that the latter, in company with a delegate of the Shereefian customs, shall undertake the investigations, visits, and verifications that he may judge necessary. Consular court deals with everything, man. Moore's got to really recognize and understand that our power falls with consular court. And you cannot have a consular court without state. Why? Because consular court comes from the third branch. Which branch? The judicial branch. Without a judicial branch and the other two branches, which makes up a state and a constitution, guess what you don't have? Consular court. Well, anybody out here claiming the title of consul general of a consular court that has not been sanctioned by a state government is either an agent or incompetent. Article 81, if after 24 hours, as stated in Article 77, the captain has not deposited his manifest, he shall incur, unless the delay be a case of vis major, a fine of 150 pesetas for each day's delay, provided, however, that the fine shall not exceed 600 pesetas. If the captain has fraudulently presented an inaccurate or incomplete manifest, he shall be personally condemned to pay a sum equal to the value of the merchandise for which he has failed to produce the manifest, and a fine of from 500 to 1,000 pesetas, and the vessel and merchandise shall be further liable to seizure by who? Can anybody read that right there for me? By who? Who can seize it? Consular authority as security for such a fine. Well, no, we got to get this through our heads. We need consular court. And in that way only, can the Moroccan laws be made binding against the United States. We got to get out of this mindset of doing whatever the hell we want because we're Moors. There's rules to the game. It don't matter how bad of a drug dealer you are, you still got to adhere to the rules of the game. Every game has a rule, has rules and regulations and structure, whether you're legal or illegal. Do you think the mafia members do whatever they want? No, they follow structure, they follow protocol, they follow rules. You're running around here with like chickens with our heads cut off, trying to find our way. Everybody got their own way. Everybody got their own process. Everybody got their own governments and their own so-called this, that, and the third. And all these other body politics and organizations, and everybody's going in whatever direction they want to go in. Can we get on one bus and head down one road, one direction, please? Everybody else do it. We're the only ones that's playing chess and moving the pawn right and left and moving the rook diagonally and moving the bishop up and down and moving the queen one step at a time and moving the king all over the board. So to any other chess player, you look clumsy and incompetent. The rules are the rules. The pawns only move up once. The first move is 2. After that is only 1, and you can only capture diagonally. The knight moves as an L shape. The rook moves up and down, left and right. The bishop moves diagonally. The queen moves all over the board. The king only moves one pace at a time, one square at a time, all over all over in one position. One step, one square at a time, I should say, the king. That's the name, that's the rule of that game. When it comes to politics, statehood, government, international law, these are the rules to the game. And what's the key to it? Consular court. And consular court can only exist through your state. It's sickening. It's sickening, man. We're just doing whatever. We just, whatever. Well, just do it. I'm a Moor. I'll do whatever I want. Well, we have some Moors that did whatever they thought they wanted to and squatted in somebody's house, and look where they at now. And it can't no consular court come to their aid because they are subjects and they haven't chosen submission between chosen between the submission of the laws of the empire and consented to a Moorish state government for their salvation, to regain their national status and get out of the status of a Moorish subject or Negro or Black or colored or even Moorish American. Article 82, any person about to pass through the customs merchandise imported or intended for exportation shall file in the custom house a detailed statement setting forth the nature, quality, weight, number, measurement, and value of the merchandise, as well as the nature, marks, and numbers of the packages containing the same. Article 83. If there should be found at the time of the visit fewer packages or less merchandise than declared, the declarant, unless able to prove that he was, see, everything is about proving. You got to have emanating documents to show and prove your position with anything. That includes your national identity. And it comes from the state, not a website or a temple or an organization or a church or the NAACP or the Nation of Islam or anything like that. Ask a Brazilian for his emanating documents to show his national identity and his connection to the state of Brazil. What he's gonna show you, a state ID, a birth certificate, passport. Ask the same thing of someone from Chile. Ask the same thing of someone from Nigeria. Ask the same thing from a Korean. They all will have emanating documents to show and prove their national status as it relates to the state they come from. And it comes from their state. The people in Manchuria and China didn't get it from the Buddhist monks. They didn't get their state ID and their birth certificates and stuff from the Buddhist monks. So why are we getting it from the Moorish Science Temple of America? I'm tired of this. I lost my train of thought. Where was I? I get passionate and emotional about this because it's like it's not taking us anywhere. It's been over 100 years and we're still doing the same thing. Why? Why are we doing the same thing? Because we're not adhering to what the prophet said. And what did the prophet say? He said, study, 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 study. He also said, do not worship me. Study and carry on my laws. There's nothing but worshiping and fellowship taking place within this movement. Nobody want to be scholar. No one want to take on the mindset of scholarship. They're just in fellowship and worship. They treat the prophet as if he's Jesus, and they follow along, they follow behind people without doing their own research. I'm guilty of the same. I'll start over at Article 83. If there should be found at the time of the visit fewer packages or less merchandise than declared, the declarant, unless able to prove that he has acted in good faith, shall pay double duties for the missing merchandise. You got to pay double duties for the missing merchandise. Presented shall merchandise, and the merchandise presented shall be retained in the customs as security for such double duty. If on the contrary, there should be found at the time of the visit an excess of packages or quantity or weight of the merchandise, this excess shall be seized and confiscated for the benefit of the moxen. If on the contrary, there should be found at the time of the visit an excess of packages or quantity or weight of the merchandise, this excess shall be seized and confiscated for the benefit of the Moorish government, unless the person making the declaration can prove his good faith. Article 84. If the declaration should be found inaccurate as to kind or quality, and the declarant is unable to prove his good faith, the merchandise wrongly declared shall be seized and confiscated by the proper authority for the benefit of the moxen. Who is the proper authority? Moorish state government through the consul general, well, not the consul general, consular court. Article 85. If the declaration should be found inaccurate as to the declared value and the declarant should be unable to prove his good faith, the customs may either levy the duty in kind then and there, or if the merchandise is indivisible, take the said merchandise by at once paying to the declarant its declared value plus 5%. Let me read that again. That was a tough read for some reason. Article 85. If the declaration should be found inaccurate as to the declared value and the declarant should be unable to prove his good faith, the customs may either levy the duty in kind then and there, or if the merchandise is indivisible, take the said merchandise by at once paying to the declarant its declared value plus 5%. Let me look at this again. So the customs may either levy the duty in kind then and therefore, or if the merchandise is indivisible, take the said merchandise by at once paying to the declarant its declared value plus 5%. Okay. So whatever the value of that particular merchandise plus 5%. Okay, I see it. All right, Article 86. If the declaration should be found false as to the nature of the merchandise, the latter shall be considered as not having been declared, and the offense shall fall under Articles 88 and 90 herein below, and shall be punished by the penalties provided for in the said articles. Article 87. The smuggling, flagrant or attempted in or out of the country by land or by sea of merchandise subject to taxes, it says duty here, shall be punishable by confiscation of the merchandise without prejudice to the penalties and fines herein below, which shall be imposed by the proper jurisdiction. In addition, the conveyances on shore shall be seized and confiscated when smuggled goods form the greater part of the load. In addition, the conveyances on shore shall be seized and confiscated when smuggled goods form the greater part of the load. I mean, At some point, we got to really raise our degrees out of the competent level of enforcing their constitution and studying their UCC, USC codes and their UCC laws and their legislation. And maybe at some point we can start enacting our own legislation. Doesn't that make sense? Why are we under their jurisdiction and following their laws? We are more than capable of enacting our own laws and our own legislation. We did it before. We taught them how to do it. And in the past 200 years, every other national on planet Earth has had their nation. Even Africa has forced decolonization, and we're still here playing RV Bay publication games. Article 88, the smuggling, flagrant or attempted in or out of the country through a port open to commerce or through a custom house shall be punishable by a fine not to exceed triple the value of the merchandise to smuggle, and by imprisonment of from 5 days to 6 months, or by only one of these penalties. Like, we got the power to just be locking people up and charging fees and punishing people that don't adhere to our Moroccan laws. But it won't happen through the temple. You know why it won't happen through the temple? Because the temple is under the jurisdiction of the United States. How? Look at the back of your 101s. Then they get registered in Cook County under the revised herd statutes. Here we go again. Their laws, their statutes, their jurisdiction, as if we can't establish our own laws in our own jurisdiction and put our temple and under our laws and under our jurisdiction. Well, we can't do that. Are we only limited to the herd statutes? Are we only limited to the Cook County? Are we only limited to the laws that have been established by the United States for their people and their subjects and their citizens? Are we only limited to that? Or do we have the authority and the power and the common sense and the knowledge and the know-how to establish our own and pull our temples from under their jurisdiction into our jurisdiction under the sovereignty and the pre-existing authority of Morocco? When are we going to graduate to this level of advancement? The prophet got to be in the grave, rolling and turning and turning and rolling like, oh my God, the Moors are just hard-headed. But he said that Moors are hard-headed. Article 89, the smuggling, flagrant, or attempted in or out of, did I already read that? Feels like I already read that, but I'll read it again. The smuggling, flagrant, or attempted in or out of the country outside of a port open to commerce or of a custom house shall be punishable by a fine of from 300 to 500 pesetas and by an additional fine equal to 3 times the value of the merchandise, or by imprisonment of from a month to a year. Article 90. Remember, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, just butt in. Article 90, the accomplices in offenses as provided by Article 88 and 89 shall be liable to the same penalties as the principals. Everybody get the same thing. The elements constituting, the elements constituting complicity shall be adjudged according to the law of the tribunal in charge of the case. Article 91, which tribunal? Well, it depends on the jurisdiction that you're in. You could be in AMPAG's jurisdiction because AMPAG has ports. You could be in the Moorish Maryland jurisdiction. You could, wherever it's according to the tribunal that you're in. Texas, right? DMT. We got a new Texas coming on. We got a Texas government coming online. Let me give you the name of it. It's similar. It's in Latin. It's by the good brother Mario Coleman Ale. Let me give you the name of their state. Where is it at? Give me 1 second. Patience. Coleman Ale. I gotta learn his state name. So it is called Dia de Montes, Elorio, Morocco, Prius, Texas. And I don't know if you can see, but this is their seal. It's an awesome seal. And at the bottom here, what you'll find is the Alamo. It's an awesome seal. So that's Dempty out of Texas. All right, Article 91. In the case of smuggling, flagrant or attempted in or out of the country by a vessel outside of a port open to commerce, the Moorish customs shall have the right to take such vessel to the nearest port to be turned over to the consular authority, and the said authority may seize and detain the vessel until it shall have paid the amount of the penalties imposed. The vessel shall be released at any stage of the action, insofar as the preliminary judicial proceedings are not impeded thereby, upon deposit made with the consular authority of the maximum of the fine, or else under responsible bail accepted by the customs. Article 92. The provisions of the preceding articles are also applicable to coasting vessels. Article 93. Such merchandise as is not subject to an export duty shipped in a Moorish port to be transported by sea. Shipped into, okay, let me not say Moorish port. Let's say it this way. Such merchandise as is not subject to an export duty shipped in our ports. Let's say it like that. Because obviously Moorish is not enough for people. So let me just say our ports then. Such a merchandise as is not subject to an export duty shipped in our port to be transported by sea to some other port in the empire shall be accompanied by a certificate issued by the customs under penalty of being subjected to the payment of import duties and even of being confiscated if not entered in the manifest. Article 94. The transportation by coasting vessels of products subject to export duties. Again, export duties are taxes. Export duties can only be effected by depositing at the custom house of the port of the departure the amount of export duties on such merchandise and taking receipt therefore. This money shall be returned to the depositor by the custom house where it was deposited on production of a declaration on which the customs certified the arrival of such merchandise and of the receipt for the deposit of the amount of the duties. The documents providing the arrival of the merchandise shall be produced within 3 months from the time of shipment. After this term, unless the delay be a case of vis major is dealing with weather, the amount deposited shall become the property of the Moxen. Article 95. The import and export duties shall be paid cash at the custom house where liquidation has been made. I'm just saying. The ad valorem duties shall be liquidated according to the cash wholesale value of the merchandise delivered in the custom house and free from customs duties and storage dues. Damages to the merchandise, if any, shall be taken into account in appraising the the depreciation thereby caused. Merchandise can only be removed after the payment of custom duties and storage. The holding of the goods or the collection of duty shall, in every case, be made the subject of a regular receipt delivered by the office in charge. Article 96, the value of the chief article of merchandise dutiable in the Moorish customs, in our customs, is to be appraised every year under the conditions specified in the foregoing article by a committee on customs valuations meeting at Tangier and consisting of 1, 3 members appointed by the Moorish government. I mean, in our current state, we don't have Moorish governments. There's only 3. New Mecca, AMPAG, and AMPAG. And that was only been New Mecca and AMPAG is only in the past 4 months. AMPAG in the past year and a half too. Prior to that, there's been no Moorish governments. There's been mentions of it. There's been talks of it, but none of it has been done in the correct fashion. And they damn sure don't talk about the act of Algeciras. So without a Moorish government, we can't do any of this because it says, I mean, number 1, 3 members appointed by the Moorish government. I don't know what else to say to people. We need governments, we need states. It's all about international law and statehood. If we're international people, Moors will say that we are international people, but they only study local laws. If we're international people, then we should be studying international law. The prophet said to take your seats in the affairs of men. What seat was he talking about? The seat at the stadium? No. The seat at the movie theaters? No. You sure as hell do that though. So then when in the hell are we going to take our seats at the government, our government seats? And I'm not talking about no fictitious, fake, wannabe organization that's calling yourself a government. What makes you a government? Officially on the record. Your constitution that has been ratified, promulgated, and deposited. You don't deposit it for recognition. You deposit it in accordance with protocols and rules of the game, i.e., your bishop moves diagonal. Your rook moves vertical and horizontal. Your knight moves in the shape of an L. These are the rules to the chess game. Traveling, carrying is the rules in basketball. You can't carry, you can't travel. You're breaking the rules if you do that. It's all about structure. We can't just do whatever the hell we want. That's why so many Moors are in jail now. Number 2, 3 members appointed by the diplomatic body at Tangier. Number 3, 1 delegate of the state bank. Number 4, 1 agent of the declaration of the 5% Moroccan loan of 1904. We spoke about the Moroccan loan of 1904. The Moroccan loan. This committee shall appoint from 12 to 20 honorary members resident in Morocco, whom it shall consult when called upon to determine the value and whenever it may see fit. These honorary members shall be selected from the list of notables drawn up by the case of foreign subjects by each legislation, and in the case of Moors, by the Sultan's representative. Don't y'all call yourselves Moors? You do wear fezzes. right? Says it right there. You call your name, your attribute is in this, it's in this treaty. Go ahead, man.
You said that's called the Moroccan loan, LOAN?
Yeah, there was a loan that was given to the Sultan in 1904 from the French. That's one
Right.
that's one of the reasons for us falling, for the empire going into decay like that, is because of a lot of some loans and things of that nature. But it was a famous loan of 1904. I got to do further research on that one. But it's in the book, The Passing of the Shereefian Empire, that I passed out to quite a few people. If you need a copy, good brother, I'll email it to you. Okay, they shall be appointed as far as possible in proportion to the importance of the commerce of each nation. The committee shall be appointed for the term of 3 years. The schedule of values fixed by it shall serve as a basis for the appraisal which the administration of Moorish customs shall make in every custom house. It shall be posted at all custom houses and in the chanceries of the legation and consulates at Tangiers. Now, I could assure you beyond a shadow of a doubt that that consulate they're talking about comes from the Moxen, comes through the state. It's not a standalone consulate. The Moorish Consulate Organization. How do you have a consulate without a state? How do you have a consular court without a state? How do you have an embassy without a state? How do you do it? How do you erect or establish government bodies without the government?
Simple. Just start one. Don't mean it's going to be based off anything, but you can start one, but it'll be baseless.
No judicial standi, that's correct. The schedule may be revised at the end of 6 months in case of considerable changes in the values of certain articles. Article 97, a permanent committee to be known as the Committee of Customs shall be organized at Tangier and appointed for a term of 3 years. It shall consist of a special commissioner of His Shereefian Majesty, of a member of the diplomatic or consular body appointed by the diplomatic body. You see, so the consular, the diplomatic, and the consular body is being appointed by the diplomatic body. These are government maneuvers, not Negro-dom, not individual Negro with a fez approach. In many cases, man, Moors are worse than Negroes, blacks, and coloreds. Because at least they have some sort of protection. Their names is on the registrar, and they have civil rights. But a stateless Moorish American has no representation, because your bay is not on the registrar of the United States. So if your name is Marcel Smith on your birth certificate and you now become Marcel Smith Bay, they recognize Marcel Smith. They don't know nothing about no Marcel Smith Bay, i.e. you're stateless. Not even the United States, not even with the United States, you're just totally, so they're gonna continue adjudicating you on your name, on your birth certificate name, Marcel Smith, because that's the only thing that they recognize. And you can't prove your allegiance to another Moorish state government that recognizes your bay, i.e. your birth certificate, not social security card, but your birth certificate or a lawyer certificate of live birth, your state ID, whatever. I will also say, in fairness, regardless of the incompetent activity, at least it was based in law. At least we was trying to take action. We're trying to make moves. We're trying to do certain things. And it damn sure scared the hell out of the colonizers because it's like they're going to eventually get it. It was an exercise, no doubt. But at this point, man, it's time to, this exercise been going on a little bit too long. Let's start making this thing real and let's move on to the higher degrees of understanding as it relates to governmental functions. Let's do that, please. So a Shereefian Majesty of a member of the diplomatic or consular body appointed by the diplomatic body at Tangier and that a delegate from the state bank, it shall be empowered to add to its members in an advisory capacity, one or more representatives of the customs services. The committee shall exercise its high supervision over the customs service and shall have the right to propose his Shereefian Majesty such measures as are likely to affect improvement in the service and assure the regularity and supervision of operation and collections, landing, shipping, land transportation, handling, the incoming and outgoing of merchandise, storage, appraisal, liquidation, and collection of duties, close parentheses. The creation of such a committee of customs shall in no way infringe the rights stipulated in favor of the bondholders by Articles 15 and 16 in the loan contract of June 12, 1904. Here we go talking about that loan contract of 1904. And this treaty was written in, it was in full force in 1906, so it came into existence right after that loan. Instructions to be drawn up by the Committee of Customs and the services interested therein shall determine the details of the enforcement of Article 96 of the present article. They shall be submitted to the advice and consent of the diplomatic body. Article 98. In custom houses where sufficient warehouses exist, the customs service shall take charge of the disembarked merchandise as soon as it is turned over by the captain of the vessel to the officers in charge of the lighterage. I don't know what that word is. Lightterage, lighterage, who shall receipt therefore and until such time as it shall have been regularly cleared from the customs. The customs service is responsible for injuries caused by loss of or damage to merchandise, which may be imputed to the fault or negligence of its officers. It is not responsible for damages resulting either from the natural decay of merchandise or from too lengthy a storage in the warehouse or from cases of vis major. Again, vis major deals with bad weather and things of that nature, storms. In custom houses where there are not sufficient warehouses, the agents of the Moxin, again, in Morocco, Moxin means state or government, are required only to employ such means of preservation as may be at the disposal of the custom house. A revision of the storage regulations now in force shall be made under the direction of the diplomatic body, whose decisions shall be made by a majority vote in concert with the Shereefian government. Article 99. Confiscated merchandise and conveyances shall be sold under direction of the customs service within 8 days from the date of final judgment rendered by the competent tribunal. Article 100. The net proceeds of the sale of confiscated merchandise and articles become the final property of the state. Whenever I pause like that, I'm just trying to let something marinate. The net proceeds of the sale of confiscated merchandise and articles become the final property of the state. As to, oh Lord, that word, pecuniary, as to pecuniary fines and compromises thereof, The amount after deduction of cost of all kinds shall be divided between the Shereefian treasury, the Moorish treasury, and those who have participated in the repression of fraud and smuggling. 1/3 to be distributed by the customs among the informants, 1/3 to be to the officers who have seized the goods, 1/3 to the Moorish treasury. Without a state government, you don't have no treasury. If the seizure has been made without the intervention of an informant, 1/2 the fine shall be awarded to the officers making the seizure, and the other half to the Moorish treasury. Article 101. Look at that, the 101s. Let's see what the 101s say. The Moorish customs, it started off with the Moorish. It started off with the Moorish. The Moorish customs authorities shall directly inform the diplomatic or consular agents of any violations of this regulation, which may have been committed by those under their jurisdiction, in order that they may be prosecuted before the competent court. Similar violations by Moorish subjects, right? Who are the Moorish subjects? Those who did not choose between the submission of the empire of the laws of the Empire of Morocco. Article 15. They decided to stay as Moorish Americans. That's your choice. Similar violations by Moorish subjects shall be brought directly by the customs before the Shereefian authorities. I mean, we have the authority to adjudicate our own. That's in a different jurisdiction that chose not to come home. Dorothy wanted to stay in America because she thinks that she's an American. She thinks that she's an Aboriginal and Indigenous American, a Tonkinist American. Don't get me wrong. I thought that too. I was a proud American. Nobody can tell me nothing about being a Moorish American. But upon examination of the facts, this is called growing in degrees, right? We're supposed to grow in degrees. Where you see faults, you're supposed to fix it, not cling to stuff. We're clinging to things that allude to slavery. Isn't that what the prophet said? We're just clinging to stuff. Oh, I see it here, but I'm a Moorish, I'm an American. 1828 Webster's dictionary says that I'm an American, and the prophet confirmed it on the 101s. But then if I tell you about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the United States of America and Morocco, that shows the two different jurisdictions. The Moorish or the Moroccans and the Americans. You can't be both, Mr. African American. It's the same trick bag. Similar violations by Moorish subjects shall be brought directly by the customs before the Shereefian authority. A delegate of the customs shall be charged to follow the legal proceedings in case pending before the several jurisdictions. Article 102, every confiscation, fine, or penalty must be imposed on foreigners by consular jurisdiction. Let that pause go for a little longer. Every confiscation, fine, or penalty must be imposed on foreigners by consular jurisdiction. And in that way only. And on Moorish subjects by Shereefian jurisdiction. As a matter of fact, Article 102 was quoted in the France versus United States case specifically. And that's exactly what it is. You know what? Where is it at? Ain't gonna be doing talking. Let's pull up the references. We'll pull up the reference points. Article 102. Give me a second here. I'm gonna pull it up. I just need your patience. If there's any questions, you can go with your questions as I find real quick where it talks about Article 102. This is worth the time to at least look at real quick. Because nobody's gonna say that I'm making anything up. I'm giving you the reference points. People can get frustrated and upset with me all they want. I don't care. Right here, right here. So let's see. In 1906, the 12 powers at Algiers all exercised capitulatory rights and privileges to the extent that they were prescribed either by the General Treaty with Great Britain of 1856 or by the Spanish Treaty of 1861. They did so by virtue of direct treaty grant, as in the case of Great Britain or Spain, or by virtue of most favored nation clause, as in the case of the United States, or without treaty rights, but with the consent or acquiescence of Morocco, as in the case of the United States, or without treaty rights, but with. So they didn't even have the treaty rights. What they did have, however, was our consent or acquiescence. As in the case of certain other states. Accordingly, the Act of Algeciras presupposed the exercise of the regime of capitulations, including the rights of consular jurisdiction, and many of its provisions assigned particular functions to the then existing consular tribunals. Reference has been made in the course of the argument to Articles 19, 23, 24, 25, 29, 45, 59, 80, 81, 87, 91, 101, 102, 119. And they even went as far, they went as far as quoting it. For example, chapter 5, which is the chapter that we're on right now, by the way, which deals with the customs of the empire and the repression of fraud and smuggling, contains Article 102, which provides every confiscation, fine, or penalty must be imposed on foreigners by consular jurisdiction and on Moorish subjects by Shereefian jurisdiction. That's France versus United States. And this is the ICJ talking, the judges. These are the judges talking. Back to 101 and 102. What does 101 say? The Moorish Customs Authority shall directly inform the diplomatic or consular agents of any violations of this regulation which may have been committed by those under their jurisdiction, in order that they may be prosecuted before the competent court. Before the competent court. Prosecuted before the competent court. What makes the court competent? The fact that it's established as a state. Similar violations by Moorish subjects shall be brought directly by the customs before the Shereefian authority. A delegate of the customs shall be charged to follow the legal proceedings in case pending before the several jurisdictions. 102. Every confiscation, fine, or penalty must be imposed on foreigners by consular jurisdiction and on Moorish subjects by Shereefian jurisdiction. Go ahead, Ben.
What I'm saying is that that's the purpose of United States. We relinquish itself from council jurisdiction, so they have to bypass council court to force to regulate them. Am I correct?
I don't think I understood that question. Repeat that again.
Everything here, what I'm seeing is that it's supposed to be done by a counselor court or by consular jurisdiction in the United
Mhm.
States relinquish themselves from that. So they don't.
No, they didn't relinquish themselves from that. What they relinquished was extraterritorial jurisdiction. That's what but they ain't even relinquished that. They got a bill relinquishing it, but it's being left open until the president deems the time appropriate to relinquish it when he signs it into law. So there's a legislation on the table, but it hasn't been signed into law by the president, so-called president. And that particular legislation is dealing with consular jurisdiction, their consular jurisdiction or extraterritorial jurisdiction. But they had consular court. Eisenhower shut it down in 1956 due to this case. 1956 due to this case. But as far as their extraterritorial jurisdiction, it's still in force right now because the president has not found the time. Listen. If the president, so-called president, had relinquished extraterritorial jurisdiction and further control of the empire in 1956, what would have happened to the empire? Or, the land, the people? Because we weren't competent enough to take over. We almost ain't competent now to take over. So the time was never really right. The time becomes right when we come to our competent state and step to them and be like, all right, let's go. It's time to relinquish. We got our 3 branches of government. We're dealing with statehood. We're dealing with international law. These are the treaties, blah, blah, blah. This is our flag. This is our seal. This is our constitution. Ratified, promulgated, deposited. When we start playing according to the rules of the game, is when the time is appropriate. Not until then. Article 1. Go ahead.
Just to further expound on what the brother was talking about consular courts, look at it this way. There was no need for consular courts because in their law, everybody was considered citizens at this time. The 14th Amendment came in, making us citizens, adopted us as citizens. And since we're citizens and not proteges, there was no need for consular courts because everybody was considered to be a citizen. So basically what the brother was saying, because the French at that time became the French patriot and they was given authority to monitor the courts, but ICJ decided that, hey man, you got all of your people on the consular courts. You ain't got no Moors on there, anything like that. So those pretty much are French courts. And based on that reason alone, they did away with that, the consular courts, because it was corrupted with French people. So the United States said, okay, well, we're gonna get rid of consular courts over here because, since the French was supposed to be the ones monitoring it, but they didn't do a good job at it. So that got rid of the consular courts over here.
Yep. Islam. There's no need for consular court for citizens. We had already been reduced to the status of citizen. Brought us out of the political status of Moorish subjects or Moroccan subjects. That's what that goes back to the Dred Scott case. The reason why he was found as a plaintiff in error is because he was a Moorish subject. So therefore, the Supreme Court couldn't offer him any remedies. The only court that could offer him remedies as a Moorish subject or a Moroccan subject was consular court. You see, William Dungy, on the other hand, he was a Portuguese Moor who had been a citizen of the United States, so therefore he was able to gain a remedy from the Supreme Court. That's the difference in the two. One was a subject, the other a Moorish subject. The other one was a U.S. or United States citizen. So after the Dred Scott case is when they made us, they naturalized us and made us citizens of the United States. And therefore, there's no need for consular court. They was trying to get consular court out of the picture.
Right. See, they were saying basically he wasn't a citizen. And at that point, they realized they denied him basic human rights because he's saying, hey, man, ain't no court. You can't get no remedy. And that's when they knew they messed up and had to come up with the 14th Amendment to make everybody citizen.
So they can have remedies through their Supreme Court.
Mhm.
That's correct, good brother, Islam.
And deny you remedy to your consular court.
And this deny you remedy to your consular court. And not only that, but also take away the whole idea of consular court in Morocco and Moorish subjects and Moroccan subjects. All that gotta go. Anything
because-
dealing with that got to go.
Because if they had been calling you Moorish subjects, then they would have to deal with you in a different way.
And
So
we
they had
would have been handling things in a different way.
right. We would have been doing things because we've been like Moorish subject.
Right.
Ding,
Right.
ding, 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 ding.
Exactly. The bulb will go off, like, and then because you'll be making decisions based on a proper perspective.
Right.
Right now, we're all convoluted. What are we, Americans? Are we Moorish Americans? Are we African Americans? Are we Indians? Are we Choctaws? Are we Cherokees? Are we blah, 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 blah? We're
See,
Moorish
that's-
subjects.
And that's where that 14th Amendment came into play. All persons born or naturalized
Right.
in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, of citizens of the United States. That's why they came up with that mess, to make us all citizens, to get us away from being subjects.
Keep us
Therefore,
away.
consular courts.
What is that? What is that? The expatriation act that states that Moroccan citizens with ipso jure morals. Which
That's
one
it.
of those?
That's it. The expatriation, the United States of America, expatriation protections abroad.
That's it.
Yeah. Is anybody able to pull it up? I was trying to pull it up.
I'll email it to you, brother. I got it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Islam.
Yep. Anything else? Anyone else? Any other comments? Article 103. In the region bordering on Algeria, the enforcement of these regulations shall be the exclusive concern of France and Morocco. The enforcement of these regulations in the Rif and in general in the regions bordering on the Spanish possessions shall likewise be the exclusive concern of Spain and Morocco. Article 104. The provisions of the present regulations, other than those relating to penalties, may be revised by unanimous decision of the diplomatic body at Tangier and in accord with the Moxin at the expiration of a term of 2 years from the date of their taking effect. And that's Article 5, good brother, or should I say Chapter 5 of the Act of Algeciras. I will draw your attention one more again, and I know that's not a word, to Article 102. Every confiscation, fine, or penalty must be imposed on foreigners by consular jurisdiction and on Moorish subjects by Shereefian jurisdiction. On that note, good brothers and sisters, I open the floor for any questions, concerns, comments, critiques, and all that good stuff. I yield. Shinbei, go ahead, brother. It's the floor is open.
When you say a Shereefian, you talk about the sheriff, right?
No, Shereefian Empire, Shereefian means the Moors. It's the empire. It's one of the many dynasties, right? So Shereefian is just this, that has something to do with the Sharif, though it does to a small degree, but a Shereefian is just the empire. I can't hear you. Hold on. Something happened here. Wait, I didn't hear you. What you said? Oh, yeah. Potentially, yes. I don't know what happened to the sound over here. Oh, Lord, have mercy. This keeps happening.
Recording stopped.
No, the internet kicked out. It keeps kicking out. So annoying. All right, go ahead. I'm listening.
Well, don't bite my head off. Okay, I'm gonna make a statement. I'm still learning, but I'm having a problem
dealing with this term Moorish subject. Now, it's my understanding that a constitution is simply a contract between two parties, being the upper echelons of a government and the subjects, or those that have subjected themselves to uh, be protected by by those that are elected or those that they have elected in the upper echelons of their state, i.e. government, right? So, but now rights, I understand, or we understand that rights you're born with, right? Born with the rights, and the contract, well, some people say Constitution give you rights. No, Constitution sort of like is the document that put on paper that this government will protect your God-given rights, so to speak. So what I'm saying is the subject, the term subject. Now, I'm thinking that subjects are anyone that have subjected themselves underneath a government. Now, if you haven't subjected yourself under the government, I would think that you would be termed as stateless. Like for example, Moors without a state. I would think that they would be so either stateless or well, they would be stateless, right? But I'm talking about Moors. Let's say Moors that don't know they're Moors or don't call themselves Moors, like the brother was talking about the 14th Amendment. They basically implemented the 14th Amendment to people and created citizens out of people that had no citizenship, but it's a lower type citizenship. But still, these people have become subject under the U.S. Even
No,
though they're
no. You're saying, hold on, brother Shin. Let's take a couple of steps back. They didn't make citizens out of people who were stateless. As we were saying earlier, we were under the jury. We were a Moorish subject is a Moor who has been subjugated and has been taken into the protections of another nation. And in fact, you become a subject to that nation. So the NBCs, prior to being NBCs, they were known politically on paper through the treaties as Moorish subjects who were, or proteges, who are under the protection of the United States. Therefore, they're not stateless. They're under the protection of the United States. There's a list that they have, they're on a list of protected subjects and proteges. You become stateless when you quote unquote proclaim your nationality through anything else other than a state. When Moors became stateless. Why is that? Because post the Naturalization Act, you have become a citizen and you had what's called civil rights after the whole civil rights movement, right? So John Smith, the black guy, John Smith, has protection under the United States because John Smith is on the registrar of the United States, through which he was able to receive his birth certificate, his social security card, his driver's license, etc. John Smith comes into the knowledge of the Moorish identity, and he wants to be a Bey. So John Smith now becomes John Smith Bey. John Smith Bey did not take the allegiance to any Moorish state to recognize him as John Smith Bey. And John Smith Bey at the same time is not under the jurisdiction or under the protections of the United States. So the United States does not recognize John Smith Bay, and no other nation recognizes John Smith Bay. Therefore, John Smith Bay becomes a stateless person. That's what the deal is. Do you understand what I just said?
Islam. I understand. Now when you say John Smith Bay, he have changed or created another person on paper, so to speak. And that person
No, not even
is
on
not
paper. Not on. He didn't even create it on paper. He created John Smith Bay in his own imagination.
okay. Well, if he did that, then he's still recognized as John Smith.
Yeah, he still recognizes John Smith. That's why they still adjudicate him as John Smith.
Which means he's under the jurisdiction of the U.S. dot.
That's correct, but not John Smith Bay.
John Smith Bay is alleged. It was just a misnomer. It becomes a misnomer. It's just something. It has no legality to it.
Right, because there's not a Moorish government that's recognizing it.
So John Smith Bay is stateless then.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. And so John Smith Bay, it only exists on paper.
John Smith Bay don't exist nowhere.
Well, if he wrote it, it exists on paper, and that entity is stateless. But the person that's recognized as John Smith, and he got ID for John Smith, and he don't have ID for John Smith Bay with any other state. Now he's stateless. In other words, that ID is what ties him to John Smith. If he got an ID from state, Moorish state, legitimate state, or what have you, John Smith Bay got an ID from Moorish state. Now he's recognized as that person being John Smith Bay. But if he didn't get that ID, John Smith Bay don't exist really. It's just a floating entity out there. It's nothing.
You're repeating what I'm saying. John Smith Bay is not part of a state government. It doesn't matter what paperwork he put together. If the paperwork did not come from his government, in which the government recognized him as a national and recognizes Bay, his El, his Ali, his Day, his Al, then he's stateless. I'll give you, the brother earlier spoke about the citizenship of the United States and expatriation. He said in part one, I pulled it up on the screen if you guys want to follow along. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. So John Smith Bay has a problem with proving his allegiance or his nationality through a state.
Could you read that again? It said somebody isn't so jure. Could you read that again, please?
It's on the screen, good brother. I'll read it again though.
I can't.
In case you didn't know, in case you didn't know, you can just use your two fingers and you can zoom in that reading if you can't see it. But I'll read it again. Excuse me. I'll read it again. Citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protections are considered ipso jure Moorish subjects.
Okay, ipso jure. Now, what does that mean? That ipso
Ipso jure means by law. Fact by
Let me
law.
see.
Ipso jure means fact by law. So it's basically saying that this person, that you would be a Moorish subject by law or according to law. That's what ipso jure means.
Wait a minute, I'm trying to find.
So now, where is it at? Okay. Can you all still see my screen?
I'm
Yeah.
trying. Oh, I should have took a.
Don't worry about it, brother. Well, I'll just email you. But you
Yeah,
take a picture? Oh, you can, hold on,
I was.
hold on. You want to take a picture of it?
Yeah, I was still trying to. Yeah, I was still trying to.
Right, it's there.
Okay.
Go ahead, take a picture of it.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Okay, got it.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Now, this case here is United States versus Burton, which is Rodney Burton. I want to get straight to the point without having to read the whole thing. Okay. Appellant defendant Rodney Levon Burton appeals his one-count conviction for being a felon in possession of a firearm in violation of 18 USC subsection 922 blah blah blah. Burton argues that because he is a free sovereign Moor, he is eternally in the jurisdiction of his ancient Moabite forebears, and the case against him should accordingly be dismissed. When Burton raised this issue before the district, now keep in mind he's coming in here standing on his square as Burton Bang. When Burton raised this issue before the district court construed Burton's argument as a motion to dismiss for lack of jurisdiction and denied the motion. RA Volume 1 at 3840, Burton was found guilty after a jury trial. He has timely appealed, exercising jurisdiction under 28 USC, whatever, subsection 1291. We affirm Burton's conviction. This case began, let me see, I'm looking for the actual point. Officers arrived at the scene and found Burton, who continually repeated a statement regarding his Moorish beliefs, during which he reported that his name was Rodney Burton Bay. Okay. Burton was carrying a bag, and officers could see the stock of a revolver protruding from the bag. After arresting Burton, officers searched the bag and recovered a Colt .357 Magnum revolver loaded with 6 rounds of ammunition. At the time of the arrest, Burton had previous convictions for marijuana possession and being a felon in possession of a firearm. Okay, so we see the case, what the case is all about. I'm trying to get to a certain point. We're going to go over this document. I don't want to ruin it, but I want to get to this point because it's going to make the point clear as to what you're asking. In this appeal, Burton seeks dismissal of this case and renews several arguments that he made before the district court, namely that he is a free sovereign who is eternally in the jurisdiction of his ancient Moabite forebears. Burton further asserts that he is not the Rodney Burton referenced in the indictment, and that Rodney Burton is a paper construct. That's what we do when we go to court. He's saying all the stuff that we, Burton also asserted that the district court erred because it used the past of the paper constructs prior conviction. Like the district court, we construe these arguments as a motion to dismiss for lack of jurisdiction. We review a district court's denial of motion to dismiss on jurisdictional grounds under the noble standard of review, United States versus Tolliver. We first address Burton's argument that the district court lacked jurisdiction over him because he is a more American national. Here we go. Burton was charged with violating federal criminal law, while in the United States, the district court's criminal jurisdiction is based on 18 U.S.C. Code, subsection 3231, which provides that federal district courts of the United States shall have original jurisdiction exclusive of the courts of the state of all offenses against the laws of the United States. Further, the laws of the United States, the beginning and the end of the judicial jurisdictional inquiry. I'm trying to get to a specific point, and I don't want to ruin the read. Burton has offered no evidence. Okay. Burton has offered no evidence to support his assertions that he is not an American citizen. That's what they said. Burton has offered no evidence to support his assertions that he is not an American citizen. And in other cases, we have rejected the argument that a defendant's alleged status as a sovereign state citizen entitles him to immunity from federal law. See Lansdale versus United States. Dismissing defendant's arguments that federal taxes did not apply because defendants were free-born, white, preamble, sovereign, natural, individual, common law, de jure citizens of a state, etc., as lacking in legal merit and potential and patently frivolous.
Right.
So whenever you hear J. Jermaine Bay say patently frivolous, this is where he get that from. Because it's saying that. Go ahead, bro.
So basically what it's saying is that he had no other contracts out there that to prove that he had any other citizenship than the contract that he had signed for his utilizing Social Security card, utilizing the birth certificate provided by U.S. etc. So those contracts is what basically gave them the idea that he was an American citizen. And so because he didn't have any other contracts out there proving anything other than that,
Oh, fuck.
then that's what deemed him as. So when you so that statement that Morocco is saying, in the earlier statement, that anyone that doesn't have the ability to prove that they have citizenship or protections anywhere else are Moroccan subjects in sojourns or whatever that was. That's basically saying to me that they're just gonna claim them.
I'm not really sure what you're asking in that regard. It's simple, brother. If you don't have another state, if you don't have like AMPAG, who is recognizing your bay and your ale and recognizing you as a free breathing human being, if you don't have that as a backing when you present yourself in a court, then but then at the same time you're arguing your position of a free Moor, then that argument lacks judicial standing and it becomes patently frivolous.
I get that, but do you disagree? Do you disagree with what I'm saying?
No, I don't really clearly understand what you're saying. But I think that the discussion is coming from the perspective of you trying to understand what is a Moorish subject and what is the difference between a Moorish subject and a national. So a national has taken the allegiance of a Moorish state government, whereas a Moorish subject is still subjected to the United States of America. And so, unless you have the emanating documents to prove.
You said a Moorish subject is still a subject of the United States government?
Yes. Yes, a Moorish subject is under the jurisdiction of the United States. And the whole goal is for you to choose between the submissions of the laws of the empire and becoming national by becoming a part of a state government. If you don't do that, then you're a Moorish subject. If a Moorish subject is under the jurisdiction of the United States, that would be the same for citizen, Negro, American, all that. Those are all Moorish. They all have a bunch of misnomers. The correct political identity.
You're breaking up real bad. You're breaking up real bad.
Can you hear me better?
It's trying to get there.
Can everybody else hear me, or is it only the brother that's having problem hearing me?
Yeah,
It's
it's kind of breaking up now. It started. We were clear up until about half a minute ago, and then you started
You're
breaking
gonna have, you're gonna have to have everybody mute their mic except you two. There's a lot of interference.
That's probably what it is.
okay.
Okay, I'm gonna answer this, and we got to move on to other
Better.
people. There's other
That's
people
much
that's wanting to
better.
know.
Yeah, that's
I'm
much
gonna
better.
answer this, and then after this answer, we got to move on because other people got questions. So I'm gonna say it one more time.
Okay, for clarity,
Negro.
for
Go
clarity,
ahead.
Wazir. Earlier you read where I think it was Morocco saying that these people are Moorish subjects. Was that, I mean, that other screen, wasn't that Morocco claiming the people as Moorish subjects?
Let me give you the clarity this way. I'm gonna give you the clarity this way. This is the best way that I can give you the clarity. Listen to me clearly, good brother. Negroes, blacks, coloreds, African Americans, Moorish Americans, all those Indians, whatever, all those terms are misnomers. Your correct status is Moorish subject because you're under the jurisdiction of the United States as a Moorish subject. What the goal is to become Moorish nationals. And that's done through your consent or the allegiance of a Moorish state government. So you only have two political statuses or designations, really three. Moorish subjects or proteges. So it's Moorish subject, Moorish proteges, both of which fall under the jurisdiction of the United States. And a Moorish national is someone who falls under the jurisdiction of Morocco. That's
Islam,
it.
more.
Yes. Islam, Amir.
Islam.
Islam. Hold on, brother. Hold on. For everyone on the line, especially AMPAG in particular, Amir Hassan Il is the Wazir al-Rays for New Mecca. You also, everybody say hi. Go ahead, good brother. What's going on?
Islam, everyone. Islam. Reading the Act of Algeciras, it says that Moors government has jurisdiction over foreigners, over Moorish subjects,
Correct.
and Moorish proteges, and the citizens of the foreign countries. So therefore, the brothers, when he was saying he thought that the Moors or the Moors had jurisdiction over the proteges and the subjects, that is correct, because we have original jurisdiction over the land. So we even have jurisdiction over the United States, who are foreigners. That's why they said in one of the articles that we're able to tax them and charge them with penalties and confiscate their properties if they go afoul.
Right.
We have original jurisdiction, and no one has a higher jurisdiction than the Moorish government on our land.
Exactly.
Within our empire. So they're protected by the United States, but we have jurisdiction over all subjects, proteges, and foreigners on our land.
That's correct.
So I yield the floor. And I really appreciate the way you're doing this class, man. I'm really enjoying it. And thank you for the invitation.
Gratitude, good brother. I appreciate it, and you're welcome to come every Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Islam, gratitude. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. Now that we're Moroccan nationals, we're still considered
up? This internet is always kicking out. Oh God, this internet sucks. So unfortunately, I may end up having like 3 or 4 parts because when it goes out, it kills the recording. Then when it comes back in, it brings back the recording. Spectrum, man, Spectrum. Y'all stay away from Spectrum and internet. Spectrum. Go ahead, brother. What were you saying?
Yeah, I just wanted to read the definition of subject here in Black's Law, fourth edition. If that's all right with you.
Go ahead, bro.
Okay, one that owes the allegiance to a sovereign and is governed by his laws. The natives of Great Britain are subjects of the British government. Men in free government are subjects as well as citizens. As citizens, they enjoy rights and franchises. As subjects, they are bound to obey the laws. Webster. The term is little used in this sense in countries enjoying a republic form of government, and that's they got a case law. Yeah, we to some Swiss National Insurance versus Miller. That's fourth edition of what the term subject is.
Yeah.
So you guys could go to the fourth edition, Black's Law Library, and study that.
Keep in mind that the Black's Law Dictionary was written by the Crown, by the British Crown. That's why you see on there talking about British Crown. But a subject is just someone you're subject to you're subject to somebody's jurisdiction, whether it be your own people or someone else. So so if you're subject, so like right now, the people of England are subjects of the Crown. So the people in Canada are subjects of the Crown, right? Anyone that's under the jurisdiction of the Crown is subject to the Crown. We're not directly under the jurisdiction of the Crown. We're directly under the jurisdiction of the United States, but then the United States is under the jurisdiction of the Crown. So we're not British subjects or subjects to the British. We're subjects to Morocco, but we are Moorish subjects from the perspective of being within the jurisdiction of the United States. Does that make sense?
But all of them guys have to obey the Moroccan treaties, which put all of them under Moroccan laws. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah. If they're contracting parties to the treaties, that's correct. Yes. And England, Great Britain are contracts are signatory powers within the treaties, or at least not all the treaties, but the Treaty of Madrid and the Act of Algeciras. However, as it's been laid out in the ICJ judgment,
I think your audio went out.
You still talking?
to the land, because they don't have nowhere else to go. So they're trying to maintain their position here by remaining as a contracting party on the treaty, while Spain, Portugal, France, Great Britain, Germany, etc. They, we already know that they got a country over there, where their countries are, in Europe. The United States never had that option. They always been here. So they had to remain on the treaty. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe, brother, when you were speaking, your mic had went out, so a lot of that stuff we did miss what you were saying.
Okay. If my mic go out, you guys, I need y'all to work with me. Just let me know. Yo. What did I mean?
Say again?
You couldn't hear us when we was telling you that.
Okay.
Islam, Wazir.
Yes, sir.
You remember the last time your mic was going out, it was because you somehow had it connected to your laptop. And I think when you put it directly onto the Telegram, it's very clear.
Right.
And I
No, it wasn't. It was the fact that internet, not or something. It dropped out. It dropped out. It's connected now. So, any other questions, comments in regards to the subject matter or whatever else? If nothing else, we're getting ready to close out. It's already 10:30. We wanted to be done by 10, but we had some good questions. So I appreciate everyone's participation and all the questions that you had. I appreciate everyone who showed up. Wazir Reyes from New Mecca. We appreciate your presence, good brother. That was awesome of you to show up.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. I'll be
Thank you.
back.
Okay, great. We do appreciate that. Please do come back. Any questions, concerns, comments on the subject matter before we close out?
Nah, brother, I just want to tell you, excellent class today. Excellent, brother. I just want to tell you that.
I appreciate that, good brother Benjamin Hardy Bay. Rasm of Trust in the States.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you, good brother. Thank you. Gratitude to you all. I appreciate all the questions, concerns, and the attendance. We're getting ready to shut down next week. Where do we leave off? Chapter 5, right? So we'll be doing chapter 6 next week. And you know, I may have another some other article or something else, some sort of documentation to go over in accordance or in that may be in alignment with the discussion. But almost any and everything seems to be in alignment with any discussion as it relates to Moors and trying to come back into our competent state of mind. Because that's really where the state starts. It's in the mind. It's your Moorish state begins with your state of mind. And then after your state of mind, you establish your state of facts. What is your state of fact? Your constitution. In our case, it's the law of Sankofa. Amir's constitution, and the constitution for New Mecca is the law of a new beginning. Is that correct, good brother?
That is correct.
That is correct. So it starts with your state of mind, and it comes from there, it manifests to the state of facts. And from the state of facts, you establish your government. So I hope that everyone that's in attendance and all the viewers out there, please take heed to the discussion that we had. I love my Moors, but we definitely have to raise our degrees to the next level of understanding as it relates to international law and statehood. We have to get out of this American mindset and this USC code mindset and this UCC mindset and this enforce their constitution mindset. We got to get out of that. We have to. Your babies are at risk here. Either we're going to keep playing these games or we're going to begin to check the boxes and do things right in conformity with international law and the treaties that were established by your ancestors for your salvation. With that, I yield. Peace and love, everyone. We'll pick it up again next week, chapter 5. Gratitude to you all. Islam.
Islam.
Peace.
Islam.
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 Islam. There we go.